every single year, there are a certain amount of players who ADPs just don't make sense. And today we have 7 running backs your league mates are drafting embarrassingly wrong. And today we're going to start with James Cook, who last year was tied for the league lead in rushing touchdowns, currently goes off the board at running back 13. Just for reference, we're using sleepers half PPR for this when we're referencing where guys are going. And Ty, it feels kind of low, right? He's already a value at a running back 13, but if you're looking at it over on YouTube, you can see, hey, now the fella's got him all the way down at running back 18. And the only reason he's that high is because Lucas has him at running back 15. Me and you are both lower than that. So why are we so low on James Cook?
Yeah, maybe it's because you and I are both maybe a little too worried about regression here, because I think you and I would both acknowledge that Buffalo should be one of, if not the top offense in the league this year in terms of scoring. But 18 total touchdowns for James Cook, I just find to be highly unlikely to be repeated. And that's not to say that James Cook is a bad player. I just don't find him as a player that can repeat 15 plus total touchdowns in back-to-back years. And this really is just kind of a simple experiment, right? Where volume stays the same, but you cut the touchdowns in half. He's the running back 19 overall. You give him 12 total touchdowns, and he's the running back 17. So we need another year of unreal, I'll say, total touchdowns to justify the price of running back 13. And again, it's not because I don't think that James Cook is a bad player, or I don't think that the Buffalo offense won't be good. I'm just willing to bet that last year was a complete outlier, and that we're going to kind of come back to the mean, that we're going to come back to what we have known James Cook to really be, which is, not a double-digit touchdown guy.
Yeah, and if you look at 2023, he was actually better in all categories except for touchdowns. He had almost just shy of 1,600 total yards, which is exactly what you want to see. But he was the running back 19 in points per game on the season because he only had six touchdowns that year. I'm not saying he's going to go all the way back to that, but let's be honest. Josh Allen the last 2 seasons got a 15 and 12 rushing touchdowns. If you're picking between him, who's going to regress a little bit more between James Cook and Josh Allen, I'm not going to bet against Josh Allen and what we've seen over the last couple seasons of his career. We also mix in the fact that Ray Davis is probably going to be more involved, especially after the offseason that we've seen from James Cook, where he just wasn't there. They're going to use him. I know he just got paid. He's going to be used like a bell cow. But like you were saying, Ty, if 6 of those touchdowns go away, either to Josh Allen or he throws it or Ray Davis takes it, we're all of a sudden talking about a guy who's dipping down in that running back 17, 18, 19 range. And it gets a little scary. And in 2023, that's why I brought it up. He had a really good season. It's just the touchdowns were there, and he was running back 19. So just not quite the guy we want to bet on for touchdowns.
No, I mean, again, for a borderline top 12 guy, the dude wasn't even on the field more than 50% of the time. His snap share was 49%. And granted, that may be because Buffalo was so ahead on teams that they didn't need to keep all of their starters in the game at all times. But I feel like, again, there's just so much that needs to fall correctly here for James Cook, when the majority of history in James Cook's career says that last year, again, was an outlier.
Yeah. Before we move on to our next player, we just want to remind you that we are growing something here. We're building the fellowship, and we want to invite you along for the ride. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications.
We got a goal.
We do have a goal with the fellowship. We're trying to bring it to 5,000 subs in the next, less than 3 weeks? Oh my god.
Like 2.5 weeks.
Woo! We are almost there. It is almost football time. We're currently like 4,532 subs at the time of this recording. So we're going to need your help to get there. So like I said, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications as well. We're going to talk about another touchdown heavy running back in Dave Montgomery, currently the running back 20. Ty and I, again, have just pushed him down our boards back to running back 19, or running back 28 for me and 30 for Ty. And it really just comes down to, do we think this Lions offense is going to be as good as they were last year? And it was an outlier season for the Lions. They scored 70 total touchdowns last year. For Bills had 65, Ravens had 65, both MVP caliber quarterbacks who just went off, and they still had 5 more. Bucks had 59 and Bengals had 57. I mean, they were 15% better in the touchdown category than the 4th best team in football. They were only had 58 touchdowns last season, or in 2023, excuse me. So took a big jump from an already good offense in 2023. Now you lose your offensive coordinator. Dave Montgomery is just that little bit older. Ty, are we too pessimistic on Dave Montgomery, or do you feel like the fade is called for in this situation with him?
We can do another kind of touchdown experiment with David Montgomery here. If he only has 8 or 9 total touchdowns, and the guy is pretty much had an average of a touchdown a game in his time in Detroit. So if he has 8 or 9 total touchdowns last year, that puts us right around running back 24, running back 25. So the question, like you asked, is are we kind of over punishing David Montgomery a little bit for the loss of Ben Johnson here and the changes that are happening to this offensive line? Maybe, but I think this was our way, at least my way, of trying to signal to people that, like, hey, when you get to the David Montgomery range in your drafts, just take a look at some of the running backs that go right after him. Like RJ Harvey still goes right behind him. And I know that that's still another, timeshare running back. But for second half of the year rookie bump, I would be much more interested in RJ Harvey. Isaiah Pacheco is another one that I find myself higher on, but that's more so because I think Kansas City's offense can be one of the top scoring units this year. So why pay up for David Montgomery when I can get an Isaiah Pacheco that will catch more passes than him? And I don't know if he's going to be able to keep the touchdown per game pace that David Montgomery does, but you get my point, is that, like, for the past couple of years, we've been able to rely on David Montgomery as a consistent kind of 13, 14 points a game. But now this year, there is enough change to make me go, wait, you know what? Maybe I need to kind of look at the guys that go afterwards. Look at the RJ Harveys, the Isaiah Pachecos. Now, I'm not saying pass them up for the Joe Mixon ADP right now to go chase the injury or anything like that, or go take Brian Robinson. But I wouldn't say that this year is the year, like it's felt in the past, that we need to kind of, like, again, we can target David Montgomery in the 5th or 6th rounds. This year, I feel like we can look past David Montgomery a little bit and go, wait, there may be better upside, or there's just better price tags for similar output.
Yeah, and you look at Monty, he actually saw an increase in touches last year compared to what he had in 2023, which is kind of the opposite way you would think it went, considering how good Gibbs did last year. But he averaged almost 16 touches a game. He saw double the amount of targets and receptions last season. I'm worried about that coming back down to earth with the emergence of, I love Jameson Williams. Amon-Ra's going to get his. Gibbs is certainly going to get his. Laporte is probably going to get his. Bears ran the ball almost 40 times more in 2024 than they did in 2023. Now, like we said, no more Ben Johnson, no more Frank Ragnow, which is just a huge piece of this offensive line. So I'm worried that he's just not going to have the volume, even if he is a 10 touchdown guy. If we're only getting, 170 carries and 25 receptions over a 17 game stretch for David Montgomery next season, you're going to feel like you have a slightly better Brian Robinson from last year, is essentially what it's going to feel like having David Montgomery. And that's my concern. I'm with you. It's kind of the signal of, we've talked about him as a safe player. We're not convinced that he's that same safe player at 28 years old in not a new scheme, but with a new play caller.
Well, and that's not to say that we don't think it's possible that he can return value at this price tag. This is a very similar argument that I find myself saying for Kyren Williams, in the sense that, like, can I see this guy returning value at the ADP right now? Absolutely. But I have more questions than I have in the past about this guy. And I don't have as many questions, or I don't have as many concerns about some of the guys that go right after them. Like in Kyren's sense, there's Amari Hampton, Ken Walker. We talked about Alvin Kamara as a league winner. That's another option. And like I said, for Monty, we were talking about RJ Harvey, Isaiah Pacheco, Caleb Johnson. If you want a second half of the year bump, like, again, too many or more questions than usual than we've had in the past. That makes me go, maybe I need to take a look at who's coming up on the board.
Definitely. And if we want to talk about questions, next guy is full of them. And that is Quinshon Judkins. And I know we talked about him 2 weeks ago, Ty and I did, doing the worst picks. We both had him on there. And we're bringing him back up because, right, it sounds like the legal situation is cleared up. Not quite from the NFL aspect, right? NFL still does a, internal investigation, which the Browns could just use as, we're just going to hold off, right? We're not signing you to one of these, high second round pick guarantees that everybody else has been getting, because we don't even know if you're going to be on the field this season. So he's still not practicing, still no contract signed, just too many questions to be taking a guy like this in the 7th round. And that's really what it comes down to, is you're still playing such a high price tag. I have him all the way down at running back 45 because I don't even think he's fully ready to go for the first couple of games at this point. I mean, he's got to learn the whole offense. He's got to learn how to be an NFL pro on top of competing with Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson. So, Ty, what say you about Quinshon Judkins?
Yeah, I would agree with this. I think I would be comfortable with him outside of the top 30 because I feel like Judkins goes in a range where you draft him as a running back 3 on your team. And again, there are still no guarantees that everything works out the way that we thought it would when he was first drafted to Cleveland. For all we know, this could be a bit of Dylan Sampson. This could be a bit of Jerome Ford and a bit of Quinshon Judkins to kind of get everybody up to speed. And they just go hot hand for all. It's certainly possible for the entire year. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to say that, like, again, every player has a correct price in fantasy football. So to say, in my opinion, that like you're never going to draft a guy is a bit ludicrous. But I can tell you for sure, I'm never going to be taking Quinshon Judkins when he's inside of the top 30 running backs. And again, he's an early 7th round pick. You best believe, like, it's the 9th round that I'm starting to consider him. And even at that point, there are a lot of other intriguing names that go in the 9th round where I'm like, I think I would rather take the shot on some of the other guys.
Let's play a quick name game with that. Guys in the 9th round. Cam Skattebo. Him or Judkins?
Honestly, Skattebo. I know. Well, so here, are we including the injury on this?
Well, let's say you hear that Skattebo's back next week.
I would go Skattebo.
Javonte Williams. He's at the 904 currently. Skattebo's 903.
Javonte.
Zach Charbonnet. Najee Harris. With his current situation.
Yeah, this is where I think I would at least start to give more consideration, and I would honestly probably lean Judkins, and that's probably more so because I don't like the price for Najee Harris more than it is liking Judkins more.
I'll ask you one more. Ramondre Stevenson.
I would go Ramondre.
Yeah, I don't know if I blame you. Now we're in the 10th round, and I left out 2 running backs purposely if you're kind of falling through in your head, because we're going to talk about them here in a second. But yeah, and I just want to add one more thing to Judkins at the same time of you're looking at this and you're going, you know what? I believe in the talent of Judkins. I think, Browns forgive quicker than any organization in the history of football. He's going to be the starter by week 6 on. It's okay. You're playing a what if then. That's a lot bigger than most rookies. And what's the upside of Quinshon Judkins? If he is the lead backing play, he's going to have Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel at quarterback. Do you think he's going to score touchdowns? Do you think he's going to be efficient? Do you think he's going to get receiving work? I don't see any of that. So it's like, you better hope he's getting 30 touches a game to even, feel valuable. And it's just, I just don't see that coming from in his future.
I don't think you did this on purpose, but the guys that you mentioned in the name game, all of their offenses are going to be better than Cleveland's. So at this point in the draft, when we're talking about like the backups and the 1Bs or the RB2s on these teams, I'd rather take the shot on these guys because at least those guys have some contingent upside versus I can't make that same argument for Judkins.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think the only team I could have mentioned is the New Orleans Saints, who might have a worse offense than Cleveland at this point. So hey, there were there weren't many teams that I could have mentioned. Ty, we've been down on these first three guys. So let's get a little uplifting here going with this next group. We're going to talk about our guy, Jordan Mason. We've talked about him a lot this season. And, obviously both of us think deservedly so. So if you're, hey, I've heard this, or I want a little more in depth, we've got multiple other videos that you can go watch where we talk about Jordan Mason. He is currently the running back 36 at the board. We have him at running back 32. Between Ty and I, he's our running back 29. I am at 30. Ty has him at 28. Lucas slows us down a little bit, unfortunately. So you can blame him for there not being as big of a gap from the fellas. But Ty, paint me an upside case real quick for Jordan Mason. Like, what truly is the upside for Jordan Mason this season?
Honestly, that he kind of takes the high value touches. I think the receiving game is still going to be Aaron Jones dominant, at least. Mm-hmm. But Jordan Mason isn't incapable of catching a few passes. And when you look at, again, Aaron Jones, who's still a really solid player, I don't think he's the same player that he was 2-3 years ago. And so when you look at, man, we need a big play here, Jordan Mason might be the guy to actually kind of answer the bell on that one. So again, Jordan Mason kind of being the early down guy, or at least between the tackles guy, he's likely going to get the goal line work here. So not only does that create just some standalone value, but if something were to happen to Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, it instantly is a starter in your lineups. And more times than not, depending on the opponent, he's probably going to be like a top 20, borderline top 15 play on the week. Because again, that's what you're going to get with this Vikings offense, is a ton of offensive volume. So again, Jordan Mason, you may think he wasn't that great, or that he had a really good in San Francisco. He's not going to be able to do that again in Minnesota. Everything out of Minnesota so far this offseason has been, we are getting exactly what we thought and more from Jordan Mason.
Yeah. Everything kind of signals Jordan Mason's way too. When you look at the Vikings, we've talked about it. They sucked as short yardage situations the last 2 seasons. Aaron Jones is coming off his first season with over 235 carries in a year with 255. His first season was over 215 the last 5. The Vikings invest heavily in the offensive line. Vikings are starting essentially a rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. They're going to need to lean on the run game more. They're investing to lean on the run game more, and they're going to have to take more carries away from Aaron Jones than they did last year if they want to keep him healthy, which, like you said, Jordan Mason. He's a guy who could easily hit, I shouldn't say easily, but could hit double-digit touchdowns. And the fact that you're getting him outside the top 30 running backs is a pretty big deal for that. And we saw he looked good last year for the 49ers, so should be interesting to see what he looks like this year. Before we get to our last 3 running backs, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our friends over at Underdog Fantasy.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, home of Best Ball Mania 6. There are $15 million in prizes up for grabs, with $2 million going to first place and another $1 million going to second place. Entering is super easy. You join a draft with 11 other people, select your team, and Underdog will automatically generate your highest scoring lineup each week. Essentially, you get all the fun of drafting with zero stress of making the wrong decision on who to start. Underdog hosts a variety of other contests as well, ranging from $3 entries to $500 entries, so there's something for everybody's pocketbook. If you're not on Underdog yet, use the code FELLAS when you sign up, because they'll give you up to $1,000 in bonus credits to play with, and we'll give you our 2025 draft guide for free. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show.
Next, we get to talk about one of my favorite players in the entire NFL, and that's J.K. Dobbins. I mean, I like Jordan Mason. We've had our love for Dave Montgomery in the past, some of the guys that we've talked about already, but J.K. Dobbins. I mean, he was a guy that I wanted to succeed so bad, and it just felt like every single thing that could go wrong for him went wrong. And last year we saw the reemergence of J.K. Dobbins. 195 carries, 905 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns on 4.6 yards per carry after coming off an ACL and Achilles tear. I mean, that's some pretty stellar work for J.K. last season. Still brought in 32 receptions on 38 targets. Now, obviously, joins the Denver Broncos. We have all this RJ Harvey hype. Ty, you've talked about it. You're actually in on RJ Harvey, and yet you're also the highest on J.K. Dobbins out of all three of us fellows. I was shocked when I saw that because of all your pro RJ Harvey hype. You're one of the reasons he's up at running back 34 for us. So why don't you tell the people, why should we be drafting J.K. Dobbins despite RJ Harvey being there?
It's kind of a two-parter. The first part is that J.K. Dobbins, I know that the usage in preseason may say otherwise, but it wouldn't surprise me, and I don't think it would surprise anybody, if J.K. Dobbins is actually kind of the lead back to begin the year. And because of that, and this is where the second part of this comes in, I'm just a fan of this Denver offense. They may not have the most skilled players out there, right? Like you're going to be running Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims and Devon Vele. You brought in Evan Ingram. You brought in J.K. Dobbins. Like, this team doesn't have like the flashy playmaker here. But what we saw last year is that when it clicked for Bo Nix, this offense just took off. And I think we can get another, really, really good and high scoring year out of this Denver offense. So if we get that, there is a world where RJ Harvey again comes through and kind of emerges as the big playmaker in this offense. But J.K. Dobbins can capitalize then at the beginning of the year, again, as that lead back. And I'm going to expect we're going to see J.K. Dobbins majority of the time when this team gets within the 10 and within the 5. Maybe we see RJ Harvey more than in the second half of the year, but at least to start and right out of the gate, I'm expecting a pretty decent amount of J.K. Dobbins in what we're going to find or what we're going to see as the valuable situations.
Yeah, and Sean Payton likes to run the rock, right? It's not that, he's just this pass happy team. He was, top 15 in rush attempts last season. And I think that's going to go up because they were just an incredibly inefficient rush attack with the guys that they had in the backfield. I mean, we can't, like, Javonte Williams was their leading rusher, and now we're questioning if Javonte Williams is even going to start over Miles Sanders when Miles Sanders gets healthy, right? That's where he was, and now coming from Dobbins having a good year, RJ Harvey, who's gotten all the hype. I think they're going to run the rock. They have a great offensive line over there in Denver. So, yeah, things are definitely pointing up for J.K. Dobbins. It's obvious. There's a reason he's going at the running back 40 right now. We're going to acknowledge that it is a question mark of what the usage is going to look like. There is no guarantee that he is, as high as we think he is. So that's why you're getting to take him later. But we think it's worth the risk because we think that he's going to get enough usage. He's going to get enough goal line touches, going to get receiving work. Sounds like he's been playing a lot on third downs, that he's going to make it worth it. And he's going to be, a pretty decent pick there for you that late.
The Denver backfield, the Minnesota backfield are kind of the prime examples of the general consensus still being afraid of a timeshare or split time backfield. And the one thing that that negates, at least that should negate your concern over a timeshare in a backfield is if the offense is really good, right? And we've seen the peak of it with this example in Detroit, where you've got a top 5 guy in Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery can be a top 20 guy. Now, I'm not saying that, again, the Minnesota backfield and the Denver backfield can be like that this year. But if it's a really good offense, there's going to be a ton of plays. There's going to be a ton of scoring opportunities. And there is a way where both of these guys can finish as top 30 guys. It may seem unlikely. And J.K. Dobbins, again, may fall off towards the second half of the year in terms of usage. But there is a world, again, because of the offense being so good, that they can both be important pieces then in fantasy.
No, 100%. I know you're excited about this next guy, though, Ty. I know you've just been waiting all episode to talk about Mr. Braelon. I know you have. I know you've just been sitting there. All the rest of this is just filler so you can get to Braelon Allen. And I got to admit, I'm starting to come around a little bit on Mr. Braelon Allen. Lucas actually has him as running back 55 right now. So again, this is a guy that me and you have personally steamed up the board here to get up, closer to that running back 40. And it's crazy to me that he's sitting this far back. And I shouldn't say crazy because I do understand he's on the Jets. Justin Fields is the quarterback. But man, you talk about the player maybe getting the most hype out of camp right now. It might be Braelon Allen. It sounds like every time this New York coaching staff, beat reporters can talk about any player, it's how good Braelon Allen looks. It's how much of a monster season he could be in for. And I just want to throw this out there. He has the upside of what if they move Breece Hall at the same time? And he is truly the lead back, because I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Breece has come out and said, I'm not the running back of the future here, guys. I know it. They know it. It's pretty clear. There's a lot of running back needy teams. Jets might not exactly be a playoff contender. It wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world to see all of a sudden, hey, Braelon Allen is the starting running back for the New York Jets. They like him a lot. They're going to continue to feed him. But let's, for the sake of this rest of this conversation on him, assume Breece Hall is going to be there. Could Braelon Allen have standalone value with Breece healthy in this offense? Or do you think it's more contingent on Breece getting hurt and just the fact that Braelon is maybe one of the best handcuffs you can have?
Mr. Fence Sitter is going to speak on this one. It's probably somewhere in between. Because I think the most realistic kind of split in this backfield is that when you look at the carries here, it is really going to be, I don't want to say dead even, because when I say dead even, that can mean 200 carries each for them. And I don't think that's going to happen. But I think you're going to see more Braelon Allen than you think on rushing downs or rushing attempts. But the receiving work is still going to go to Breece. So that's why there's such a drastic discrepancy in their price tags right now between Breece and Braelon Allen. But that being said, like you said, Braelon Allen is almost like, I don't want to say the better scheme fit here in New York, but I feel like that's what I'm reading between the lines here, is that Braelon Allen is actually the most efficient or the most productive back in this new system that's coming to New York. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that, Braelon Allen is going to overtake Breece Hall in touches by the end of the year if they're both on the Jets by the end of the year, because I think we do have to remember that Breece Hall is still a very, very good and talented running back. But Braelon Allen has what I will call the Zach Charbonnet factor, where we talked about Ken Walker yesterday and Zach Charbonnet being enough of a thorn in Ken Walker's side. Braelon Allen is going to be a huge thorn in Breece Hall's side because of touchdowns. Now it's just a matter of how many touchdowns they're going to score, which is a legitimate question. But Braelon Allen is kind of in line to get a lot more work than people expect here. And it may not result then in him being a top 20 guy, but for the fact that he goes outside the top 50, if he finishes as a running back 3, so if he finishes as a top 36 guy, not only do you have a trade piece, but you have one of probably the best handcuffs in the league, because again, if Breece goes down, similar to Jordan Mason, Braelon Allen is pretty much going to be in your lineup then.
Yeah, he I don't know, it just feels weird that he's going as late as he is with everything that we were hearing about it. It's just the fact that he's on the Jets with Justin Fields, but that preseason game, he had all the third downs. He came in on 4th and 1 to get that carry. He's a huge guy. So like you said, if they're around the goal line, you'd be crazy not to use him. It's just the fact of how many touchdowns are the Jets actually going to score this year is what it's going to come down to. I think he could have deeper leagues have standalone value. He could be a guy who's in half PPR formats getting you 8 to 10 points a game, which isn't pretty, but if you're drafting him as the running back 53, that's good value. I mean, that's beating out a lot of running backs in that range. And the last guy we're going to talk about now, we're going to talk about Bill Crosky-Merritt, Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. I decide you want to go by Bill. Did you hear the reason? I haven't heard. I've seen like articles about it, but I haven't actually clicked on them. Why Bill?
I feel like I can make a guess, but I also don't want to expose myself for not being in the know.
Something up. Anyways, as Ty's looking up the reasoning, there's two sides of the coin on this one. As of right now, if you're drafting tonight or tomorrow, he's probably too low on the sleeper big board. We just don't want you to forget that he's currently at the running back 63. But something's happening where people are taking him a little too early. Before we really dive into that, Ty, it looks like you found it. Why Bill? You got to give me the reasoning here.
Well, okay. So when he was younger, he got the nickname Bill because of his low haircut. And so they said that he looked like a character named Little Bill from a cartoon created by a not so great guy.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's where it comes from, and somehow it's stuck because here we are, a 24-year-old still saying, no, call me by the name that I was called when I was a kid.
All right, well, good for him, I guess. We will call you Bill if that is what you want to be called. It's a little bit easier than trying to remember Bijan. So, I mean, we got that going for us.
True.
But yeah, Ty, I know you agree with me that, hey, running back 63 is too low. But when does it start to swing the other way? Because that's what I think, especially if you're drafting later on in drafts. When does it start to swing the other way where we're too steamed up about Bill Crosky-Merritt?
When it's not even really exactly going to be represented in the draft capital on him, but it's when we're going to get to the point that people are going to say he's going to be the workhorse in this Washington offense, because that's not going to happen. And it's not even because like I've got stats to prove it, but you've got Austin Eckler still, who, for all we know, could be more special teams this year, or at least that's what they want to get him involved in more. So maybe he's going to stay as involved as he was last year, which was under 100 carries. But Jeremy McNichols was a guy that got a lot more work than people expected. That's what kind of held Austin Eckler back. And I'm blanking on the fourth guy, Chris Rodriguez. There we go. 6th round rookie not rookie, but 6th round pick out of Kentucky. Ball knowledge. They also like him. So it's not going to surprise me at all. Sure, that I know JCM. So do I have to go BCM now? BCM. That BCM could lead this backfield in carries. But again, if you're drafting him with the expectation that he's going to be the workhorse, or that he's going to have 200 plus carries, even 180 plus carries is kind of what the pace was for Brian Robinson, then we're missing the point, and we're kind of and then we're not accurately predicting what we're getting here with BCM. So again, like you said, the capital at this very moment is still too low, because again, there is some value to a running back leading their team in carries, but you have to keep it in context and you have to keep it in perspective. As soon as you start to think that that BCM is going to be, steal of the draft because he's going to get a top 20 workload and all that stuff, then we're so far from missing the point then.
For sure. And I think a lot of people want to compare him to Isaiah Pacheco, being a 7th round pick himself. Isaiah Pacheco was on a Super Bowl team. I'm not saying, like, I know obviously Washington's pretty good. Patrick Mahomes does not run nearly the same amount as Jaden Daniels does. And Isaiah Pacheco was the running back 48 in points per game that year. I know, I mean, he obviously finished better towards the back half of the season, week 11 on, had 4 different top 20 running back finishes. Maybe that's in BCM's, future. It just feels unlikely when the fact we already saw in the preseason game, Chris Rodriguez Jr. outplayed him other than that 27-yard touchdown. I'm not saying that Chris Rodriguez is going to be the starter, but you and I both feel it's going to be some sort of mix of like a 4-headed monster, whether Brian Robinson's there or not. And it's just, will he maybe by the end of the year be the lead back? Yeah, I think that could happen. We just don't think it's as valuable where you shouldn't be steaming him up where all of a sudden he's this top 30 running back.
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember that like Kansas City, I mean, Pacheco came through for Kansas City, right, in his rookie year when he got 170 carries. He led the running backs in carries, but that's also because that team had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, and here's a blast from the past. You ready for this one? Ronald Jones.
Ooh.
Those were the other running backs here. And let's just say the optimism that Kansas City had for those guys is not even close to the optimism that that Washington has for Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols. So is there a world where BCM, again, second half of the year, just kind of overtakes everybody and is really the guy? Sure. But this is where draft strategy matters. You can't be reaching for that because it's not certain that you're going to get that right out of the gates, in week 1.
Yeah. And I think that's just what we want to caution against, because it does feel like Brian Robinson is not going to be on this team and they're going to trade him and people are going to be reaching. Don't be one of those people who is reaching. But again, if you are drafting right now, just remember he is down the board. He has not moved up yet. So if you can scoop him up around this running back 55 range, I mean, that is a good value on him. All right, well, we will be back tomorrow. Actually, I will not be back. Tyler and Lucas will be back tomorrow. What are you talking? You were talking 6 league players with league losing downsides. So 6 guys that you want to avoid. And I think I'd listen to that one. I think that's one where I would make sure that those guys are not on your team. Tyler and Lucas obviously know exactly what they're talking about. They never miss, never have had a wrong take before. I will see you next week. I will also see you on, well, I guess I will see you on Thursday if you watch our short form content, because I have a video coming out then. And if you want to watch that short form content, you can follow us at Fantasy Football Fellas on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, or Facebook. The FFL is on Instagram, or FFL is on Twitter. If you want Tire Eyes X handle, it's at Tyler_Plaster_Ty, and I am at Camla FFF. Well, it was a lot of fun. Let us know if there's anything we missed, and we'll see you guys later. Deuces.